Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer. Today I'm inside my kitchen. I was having a conversation with somebody on the phone the other day for my patron-only podcast that I do that's called In Conversation With. And I was in conversation with a chap. We were talking about history. And I started off, as I often do, saying, oh, I'm very proud of my country, England. And he said, well, he didn't feel that proud was the right word, because he could be proud of his children because he had been part in the creation of his children, and if his children did good things, he could be proud of them, but he didn't feel that the country itself was something that you would be proud of. And that got me thinking, because I thought, well, I don't know, how do I feel about this? Do I agree with that notion or do I disagree? Because I feel inherently proud of the things that this country, England, that I am an Englishman of, has done over the many millennia that it's been here. And so I wanted to come up with 10 things to give an example of this, if you like. There seems to be out there at the moment a lot of this revisionist history, a way of making out that England is not as good as it used to think it was. And you look at other nations like the Welsh, like the Scottish, like the Irish, and like a lot of other countries, they're very proud of their nation. And yet for some reason, and I don't understand why this is, England and English people are being made to feel that being proud of England is actually not a good thing. Well, I fight against that, and that's pretty much what this channel that I'm doing is all about, the quest for England, showing off the wonderful landscape, the heritage and the nature. And here's an example of 10 of the things. I mean, there could be hundreds of them. There probably are, but we haven't got time for hundreds. I've only got time for 10. So here's 10 things that I am proud about of England and its achievements. And number one is the old buildings. You know, the timber framed buildings. I mean, in the early days, they weren't actually designed. They were just constructed. And now I'm sure all over the world, there are fascinating and wonderful timber frame buildings, but our timber frame buildings are pretty unique and I love them. You know, you get into the Tudor period, the Elizabethan that still survive, but before that we had some fantastic ones. Some of these large merchant buildings with all that wonderful oak, the wattle and the daub and the thatch and all of that, the very picturesque, beautiful quality of our timber frame buildings. And then you move into the Georgian period where they were embarrassed about the timber frame buildings and put fake frontages, if they couldn't afford to knock them down and rebuild them completely, with what looks like a Georgian whole building, but it's just the frontage. And I love that. I love our quirky English buildings, the vernacular style wherever you go across the countryside, something that people from all the world come to England to have a look at, and I'm very proud of those buildings. Something else that I'm very proud of, excuse me whilst I slurp on my lovely coffee from a Bald Explorer mug available at the Bald Explorer store at baldexplorer.com, by the way. The RAF, the Royal Air Force. The Royal Air Force, and in particular, I don't know too much about the Royal Air Force, by the way, but I am very proud of the role and the spirit of the RAF, particularly during the Second World War and specifically during the Battle of Britain, the Hurricanes, that wonderful, wonderful aircraft, and of course the Spitfire, which were the fighters, which were repelling the bombers who were trying to destroy Britain and get rid of our air bases so that there could be an invasion. When we were the last of the countries in Europe who were against Hitler and his might, and we stood up for it. And the speed and the development of those plucky aircraft, those beautiful and graceful aircraft that now we look back on with perhaps rose-tinted romantic eyes, but they were fantastic. And I feel that we should be proud. So I'm proud That's another thing. I'm proud of the RAF and that ability, the whole of that administration and organisation of having the not only the Spitfires and Hurricanes in the air and the aircraft, but the whole groundworks, the team of communication and the radar and all of those things that came together at such speed. Absolutely incredible. Number 3 on my list is the BBC. Now, at the moment, I feel the BBC is too biased, too political. It's getting its nose into all the wrong things. It's scaremongering the country like nobody's business with the COVID situation. I think it's being absolutely atrocious, and I very much support the defunding of the BBC. And I no longer have a TV licence, I no longer have a television, I don't watch it. I don't even now listen to Radio 4, which I was brought up on. But I'm very proud of the BBC, the original idea, the concept, and up until, I suppose, the last 12, 15 years, when the BBC really stood for something. It created some amazing programmes, some fantastic documentaries. It was, at one point, pretty much unbiased, but or if it was biased, it wasn't so overtly biased than it is at the moment, to the point where I just cannot take their doom and gloom. But it was brilliant, and it served a purpose, this place where you could educate, entertain, and all those things without the adverts and commercial interests. And it should be there as a public service broadcaster, bringing people stuff that they couldn't get on elsewhere. But sadly, now it's gone downhill. So I'm proud of the earlier formation of the BBC. Number 4 on my list is landscape. The landscape of England, this country, and you can include all of Great Britain into that, of course. I mean, I'm concentrating on England, but of course in Scotland and Wales, there's some absolutely gorgeous and amazing landscape as well. But also in England, we do have this fantastic landscape, and not just the hills, but I'm talking about the forests and the woodland and the whole of the geology, in which changes in so short space of time, that has given to our old buildings, for example, the building materials that have given this country this a wonderful patchwork effect, including pretty much now, again in the golden olden days, the patchwork of farms and mixed farming and fields and things like that, the hedgerows and the wildlife that has grown up amongst it all. Sadly, we're seeing a lot of that obliterated again. A lot of the modern ways, the globalist ways, seem to be quite hell-bent on getting rid of a lot of what we have to be proud of. And this is where I try to fight against it in my videos, where I can. So the landscape I'm very proud of. In that landscape at number 5 is the old monuments, these prehistoric monuments like Avebury and Stonehenge, and our stone circles all over the place, our standing stones, and our prehistory whole world, the tumuli, the long barrows, the round barrows, the dish barrows, all of that whole Neolithic world. I'm extremely proud to have become, I suppose, descended from all of that through some quirk of whatever, but I'm proud that we did it and we have those monuments, and that I'm proud that we protect those monuments, and they're there for us to wonder about ancient civilizations and people who were, it seems to me, a lot more in tune with nature and the world and the seasons and food than we are in this sophisticated world at the moment. So I'm incredibly proud of our ancient monuments that remind us of those things. At number 6, I am proud of our authors, our great classic authors, Dickens, and people like that, the wonderful stories that we have created in publishing and sharing, and the characters that we have created like Sherlock Holmes and James Bond, which have resounded all around the world, and people know us for them. And some of the lesser known characters, some of these amazing authors that we have generated. Now, of course, there are authors all over the world, and I dare say if you live in India or if you live in Japan or in America, wherever, you're proud of your authors. I'm just saying I'm proud of our amazing collection of English authors, the Shakespeares and all of those sort of people that we have. It's something so much to be proud of that we should smile every time we see one of those books on our shelves, because that is something that a lot of people do envy in us. We must remember that. And number 7, real ale. Proper English real ale. The warm beer of the pub. Oh, there is nowhere else that brews real ale as we do. The marvellous malty, hoppy real ale that's served up in those traditional old timber-framed pubs that were the hub of the community, that we are now seeing decimated, absolutely decimated in this modern world, in which people just go and buy a few tinnies from the supermarket. And with the COVID situation, in which the whole hospitality industry is being steamrolled, almost as if the government just wants to get rid of it, which is just terrible. And I feel for all of those old pubs that serve the real ale, and the brewers and the micro brewers who are trying to keep that wonderful real ale, the taste that has come down the centuries from those Neolithic people. Or we may be a little bit more refined on our beers now than they were in those days, and they may be less full of cereal and less porridgey, but it's something absolutely to be really proud of. Our wonderful, different, huge numbers. You never find the perfect pint. And the search, I've done it. I've gone searching in the old days when I had a podcast which was called The Vobes Show. I now do a live thing called The Vobes Show, but this is a different thing in the olden days. And I used to do a beer show every Friday night in search, and we would try as many different beers. We often got a little bit more sozzled than we should in the show. But the variety from those key ingredients, the hops, the barley, the water and the yeast, that made just the variations of so many wonderful different types of beer. We should be proud of that, definitely. And number 8 are wonderful comedies, the old comedies that places like the BBC produced, the comedies of Monty Python and Fawlty Towers, the two Ronnies, are wonderful comedians of that period, the Eric Sykes, the Tommy Coopers, the Norman Wisdoms, and all of those so uniquely English, and you could say British as well. And also within that are old films, the black and white films, the Ealing comedies, that sense of what England was, so beautifully put together and so marvellous to watch. We should be, and I am so proud of those things that we do. It's just, how you couldn't be proud of that, I don't understand. They're amazing. At number 9, our canal system. Our canal system, again, so unique in this world. Our wonderful narrow boats with our canals, and you know how popular people who have canal channels are on YouTube with their narrow boats going around this incredible network of communication in a trough that's mostly something like 15 foot wide by 14 foot deep, with these incredible locks and mechanisms for keeping the water there and bringing, in the old days of course, all the various building materials and food and even gold bullion along in a reliable and wonderful, calm and wonderful way, and the way that the people would live on those canals. And then when that came to an end, thanks to modernisation, we now have an amazing holiday for people, or a lifestyle choice for people, on our terrific canal system, which isn't as big as I would like. I would like to see it stretch its fingers a little bit further, but it's just such an amazing and unique thing. Yes, other people have canals, but not like we do here in England. And I'm immensely proud of all of that. The designers of the boats and the wonderful paintings from the old canal systems, the history, and all of it. It's, again, something that we should be so proud of, and we're so lucky in England to have. And finally, and this is not the last of a short list, this is just 10 out of millions of things to be proud of. But the seaside is my number 10. Trips to the seaside, those excursions down with the piers and the kiss me quick hats and the Punch and Judy on the beach and the ice creams and laying down there in the sun or standing or sitting on one of these wonderful fold-up deck chairs, even when it's pouring with rain, stoically having a cup of tea in the tea rooms and going down to the boarding houses and having a bit of a life away from your normal life in the cities and the towns. Those wonderful days at the seaside, the holidays, before people used to think that they had to go and fly across the rest of the world and do all of that. And the knotted handkerchiefs and the saucy postcards and the whole lot, the people who go to fish on the sea and all of it. It's, again, our coastline is so different in lots of different places that you can go walking along the coastline of England and of course all of Britain as well. I mean, there's some wonderful places naturally up in Scotland and in Wales and down in Pembrokeshire. I mean, you know, obviously goes without saying, but I'm just proud of that, the old steam paddle ships that would come out of places like London and bring the excursions and the day trippers down to the seaside to sample something, and the history of the changing machines that the ladies would change in and be wheeled down in the Victorian period to the sea and go for a plunge, and the people who would take to the air and drink the water for their health. Our history is so full of exciting and wonderful things to be proud of, and these are just 10 simple things that didn't take long to come up with. And I'm sure if you're English or if you visited England, there must be a whole load of things. I'd love to know what you're proud of about being in England or being English. Do write them down in the comments below. It's a lovely country, and I just will not listen. I refuse to listen to the idiots and the naysayers and the doom mongers and the horrible people who want to say that this country's history and its nation is nothing to be proud of. There is. If you don't like it, go and live somewhere else, because this is a wonderful place with an amazing history, and I hope that I can continue to explore it in the Bald Explorer. Thank you for watching, and do give me a thumbs up if you agree. I dare say there's going to be a lot of people who are going, oh, Richard, you can't wave the nationalist flag. Well, I don't care. You don't need to watch my programmes. I am English, and I'm proud of it, and long may we be here doing what we do. Till next time, thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.